It was Christmas Eve, and children all over the world were full of excitement, awaiting the arrival of Santa Claus. The night sky was bright with stars, and the streets were quiet because families were sleeping, dreaming of gifts and holiday cheer. But in the North Pole, something was terribly wrong. Santa Claus, the jovial man who had always been able to spread Christmas magic, stood at the edge of his workshop, staring at his sleigh. His heart raced with confusion and fear. For the first time in centuries, he couldn't feel his magic. He tried to climb onto the sleigh, but it wouldn't budge. The reindeer, normally so raring to go to take to the skies, stood immobile, eyes glazed, seemingly not seeing him at all. Santa called their names, and no one said a thing. "What's happening?" he asked himself softly, his voice trembling. He drew out his bag of magic presents, but nothing happened this time either. It wasn't aglow with the magic he always sensed. A panic was welling in his chest. Christmas was just hours away, and Santa had no idea how he would deliver the gifts. Was this something Santa could fix, or had something far worse happened? Something beyond his control. The world's holiday magic seemed to hang by a thread, and Santa's heart sank as the weight of the night began to set in. Santa rushed into the North Pole workshop, his breath visible in the cold air. The elves were gathered in groups, whispering nervously to each other. Their usual cheer was missing and replaced by confusion and worry. "Santa always has his magic." "What's happening?" one of the elves asked, voice shaking. Santa didn't respond right away. His attention was drawn elsewhere to figure out what had gone wrong. Everything his sleigh, the reindeer, and presents depended on was useless. He attempted one final call on his magic, but it refused to return. The workshop that was always warm and festive now felt cold and hollow. He had never been so helpless before. Even the elves, who always seemed so optimistic and industrious, now watched him with uncertain eyes. Santa paced the room, trying to find something that could have gone so wrong. He considered all the usual explanations. Maybe the magic had worn off, or perhaps the North Pole was weakening. But deep down, he knew this was more than just a glitch in the system. Someone, or something, was responsible. The magic wasn't just missing. It was gone. Has someone stolen it? Santa's mind was racing as he stepped outside the workshop, the snow crunching beneath his boots. The wind howled through the icy trees, and everything seemed colder than it had been before. Northern lights, once vibrant with color, now flickered weakly above him. Something was wrong. It felt as though the very air was heavy with a dark presence. Santa walked further into the snow-covered landscape in search of clues. Reaching the far edge of the North Pole, he noticed something odd in the snow. There, half buried in the frost, was a small, yellowed piece of paper. He bent down, his hands shaking slightly as he picked it up. The note simply read, "The magic is lost forever." Santa's heart skipped a beat. Who would dare to challenge him, let alone steal his magic? Was this some sort of cruel joke, or was there a deeper plot against him? The note felt like a warning, a sign that someone knew his greatest secret and wanted to destroy it. He stood there for a moment, holding the note tightly in his hands. Could someone really be plotting against Santa? If so, what would they want with Christmas magic? Santa had to act fast before the entire holiday season slipped away forever. Santa hurried to the stable where Orion, the wise old reindeer, stood watching the dark sky. Orion was very old, having pulled Santa's sleigh for hundreds of years, and he had seen and experienced things that most could not imagine. Santa's face was etched with concern as he approached. "Orion," he asked, his voice full of worry, "do you know what's going on? Why has my magic disappeared?" The old reindeer looked at him with wise, knowing eyes. "This isn't the first time magic has been lost," Orion said slowly, his voice carrying a weight of age and experience. "There have been times before when the magic faded, when it was almost taken from us, but it's never been this serious. Santa's heart skipped. "Never this serious?" he repeated, looking deep into Orion's eyes. "What do you mean? What's happening now?" Orion sighed, his gaze turning toward the dark horizon. "There's something darker at work, something more dangerous than simple magic theft. You may not have lost your magic by accident. Someone is pulling the strings from behind the scenes. I fear that Christmas itself is in danger." Santa wondered, could this be a warning of something even worse to come? Could magic be more than just a tool for delivering gifts? Was there a larger plan in motion, one that threatened not only his power, but the very heart of Christmas itself? No time to waste. Santa knew he needed answers. He ran to the library at the North Pole, a dusty, forgotten place holding the oldest and most sacred texts of Christmas. Santa's footfalls echoed through the vacant halls as he searched for old books and scrolls on end. In the back, tucked in a far corner of the library, he found an old book covered in dust and cobwebs. Opening it slowly, Santa began to read. The book spoke of an ancient time, long before Santa's reign, when magic was not something to be taken for granted. It spoke of a powerful figure who could steal the magic and hold it hostage. The book mentioned a shadowy figure, someone who could stop Christmas itself. Santa's eyes grew wide as he read further. It said that the magic was never truly lost. It could be hidden, buried deep within the cold earth or hidden in the darkest corners of the world. This time, however, the magic was not merely taken. It was being used to erase Christmas. Who would dare to stop Christmas? Who had the power to take what was so dear to the world? Santa's mind was racing. Was there someone behind this? The same person who had taken the magic all those years ago? The book hinted that the thief had a deep, personal grudge against Santa and Christmas. Could Santa find the thief behind all this before it was too late? Would he catch the perpetrator in time to save Christmas, or would the magic of Christmas disappear forever? Santa knew it was only a matter of time before it slipped away. Christmas Eve was escaping, and the world's children were waiting with bated breath for their Christmas gifts. He could waste no more time. He decided to go on a quest in search of the person stealing his magic. The jolly and fearless elves once were too scared to do anything. They feared this unknown person too much that they could not even risk going with Santa on that perilous adventure. There was one elf, though, Tilly, who showed great guts in her eyes. "I'll go with you, Santa," she said, her voice unwavering. "I won't leave you in this cold, lonely place. We'll find the magic together." Together they crossed icy mountains and trekked through dense forests. The cold was biting, and the shadows seemed to whisper around them, warning them of the dangers ahead. Strange creatures watched from the darkness, and every step felt uncertain. But Santa and Tilly moved on. The urgency to save Christmas had pushed them forward. And as they journeyed, Santa couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that grew inside. This was different from the dangers he had faced on previous journeys. At this time, they came to a small bridge. Tilly suddenly hesitated, as though she was struggling with some thought. Santa noticed the hesitation, but said nothing. There was something Tilly wasn't telling him. She seemed to know more than she was letting on, but what was it? Was it perhaps that she knew a thing or two about the thief? After what seemed like an eternity, Santa and Tilly came to a dark castle built deep in the mountains. The walls were covered with vines, and the iron gates twisted into a work of art. The magic was thick in the air, and the silence nearly suffocated. Then, inside the castle, they were welcomed by a tall, dark figure, a man cloaked in darkness. "I've been waiting for you, Santa," the figure said in a deep, cold voice. "You've come to ask for your magic back." Santa's heart sank. The figure stepped into the light, revealing himself to be an old wizard, a former friend of Santa's, someone who had once been an ally. Santa couldn't believe his eyes. The wizard explained, "I stole your magic, Santa, not out of spite, but because you broke a promise you made to me long ago. I gave you everything, and you forgot me. You left me to suffer in isolation while you became the beloved figure of Christmas. I'm punishing you for that." Santa stood there, transfixed, his mind in a whirl. Could it really be happening? All this time, the wizard had been kind and an uncomplaining, trusted companion. What had taken place that made him abandon Christmas? Could Santa ever convince the wizard to regain the magic? Or was it too late for redemption? With his face cold and filled with anger, the wizard presented the impossible choice to Santa. "If you want your magic back, you have to fulfill the promise that you made to me many years ago. You must make things right, or Christmas will never be the same again. Your magic will forever remain lost." Santa was confused. "What promise? What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice shaking with frustration, for he had no recollection of any promise or ever letting the wizard down. The wizard smirked. "You really don't remember, do you? You promised me you would help me find a home. You promised me you wouldn't forget me. But over the years, you became so focused on Christmas that you lost sight of the people who helped you get there." Santa's mind ran wildly. Could the lost promise really be why his magic was gone? Was it truly his fault against an old friend? The promise wasn't forgotten. It was buried deep in Santa's heart. A promise made in the early years of Christmas magic that he had long since overlooked. Santa took a deep breath, and slowly memories started coming back. He remembered that he had made an old promise to the wizard. He promised him to find a place where he belonged, a place where he would not be forgotten. But as the years passed, Santa got so carried away with his role as the giver of Christmas that he forgot about it. The wizard had waited years, his heart full of bitterness and regret. The person he had trusted most in the world, whom he had placed all of his trust in, Santa Claus, had betrayed him. Was this enough to steal the magic? Or was there something even deeper, a pain that ran much farther than Santa's simple mistake? Would Santa be able to keep his word and save Christmas? Or was the wizard's anger too deep to heal? Santa knew that this was his last chance at making things right. He couldn't change the past, but he could certainly keep his word. Turning to the wizard, he said in a steady voice, "I promise you, I will fulfill the promise I made. I will help you. I won't forget you again." The wizard's cold eyes flickered with doubt, but he didn't move. "It's too late for promises, Santa. The magic has already been stolen. You've lost everything. Your magic is mine now." But as Santa spoke, a strange thing began to take place. The magic, slow and hesitant, began its return. The reindeer stirred, the sleigh lifted slightly off the ground, but it wasn't enough. Time was running out, and children across the world were still waiting. Just when Santa started gaining a little magic, the wizard hesitated and began wondering if he could indeed believe in Santa's words all these years. Did he really believe in Santa now? In this split second of hesitation, Santa moved forward. "I can understand your pain, and I know I cannot change what is gone, but I do want something from you. Will you forgive me? Will you help me deliver these presents tonight?" The wizard stood still, his expression torn. Anger and hurt battled with a desire to make things right. Could forgiveness heal the rift between them? Or would it take more than words to restore their friendship? Santa offered a hand, a simple gesture of kindness and trust. The wizard's eyes softened, and for the first time in years, he looked at Santa with something other than anger. There was hope. Could forgiveness really mend the wound? Was it enough to nullify the years of suffering? Touched by the sincerity of Santa, the wizard nodded slowly as a tear trickled down his cheek. "I will help you," he said, his voice cracking with hoarseness. "You have kept your promise at last." The magic flowed back to life at that moment. The sleigh shot into the night sky, and the reindeer flew faster than ever. The magic of Christmas rushed back into the world again. But Santa knew it was more than that, and that it was more about the lessons he learned rather than presenting himself. The real lesson, however, was not in the magic. It was the promise kept, forgiveness, and the power of good. Santa had learned much more than any gift. When Santa returned to the North Pole, magic was fully restored. The wizard, angry and bitter, had gone away, but his message was clear. Sometimes we forget our promises, but it's never too late to make things right. Christmas had been saved, but Santa knew he would never forget again. The world had been reminded that the true magic of Christmas was in the promises we keep, the forgiveness we offer, and the love we share. What would be Santa's promise next? How would it change the world? Christmas was saved, and the magic of promises will never fade.